Whether you're a fan of the historical and political CLS, the gaming-centric Side Quest, or the podcast series Fireside Chats, or some combination of the three, I hope you'll consider supporting Colin's Last Stand on Patreon at patreon.com/colinslaststand. Doing so allows all three shows to continue without baked-in ads and other obnoxious forms of advertising. You also get a bunch of cool perks depending on your level of support, like the ability to vote on upcoming video topics, early access to podcasts, Patreon-exclusive Q&A videos, and more. Thank you for your kindness and support. Now, on to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Colin's Last Stand Side Quest right here on YouTube. My name is Colin Moriarty. Happy New Year. Happy 2018. It's great to be back. I hope this video finds you and yours well, as always. Today, I want to do my Game of the Year list for 2017, but I want to do it a little bit differently. I feel like Game of the Year lists don't really take into account that people don't play everything, don't have the time. I'm 33 years old. I'm a really dedicated gamer, but I have lots of other things to do, so I'm not able to get to everything, and I kind of wanted to acknowledge that in the list this year. But I also wanted to celebrate the games that I beat and that I spent lots of time with and that I really recommend to you. So what I have here are 13 games on this list, split into three categories. 5 games that I beat and that I loved and that I want to recommend to you. 3 games that I spent a lot of time with but didn't beat and still want to get back to and think are great. And then 5 games actually that were intriguing to me but I never got to, that I think would probably be somewhere on this list if I got to them. But again, I don't know. Still, didn't want to ignore them. But before we get into all of that, I also want to give a nod to some games that I played this year that didn't necessarily come out this year or didn't make the cut at all because they're just not good enough. So I want to start with Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, which did come out this year. I thought the gunplay was great. I loved the game. Playing it was fun. It was super hard, which is great. I thought the story was a little silly, and I know that sounds weird for Wolfenstein, but I think that the New Order and the Old Blood had grounded stories that made sense, and I felt like this one kind of was a parody of itself towards the end, so that ruined it a little bit for me. Didn't make the cut. I played Transistor for the first time this year. That game came out like 3 or 4 years ago on PS4 and PC. Platinumed it, really loved it, want to give a shout out to that game. I also played Final Fantasy VII for the first time in probably almost 20 years this year on PS4. Platinumed it, loved the experience, glad I got to go back to that as well. And finally, Blood-Borne. I finally sat down and played Blood-Borne for probably 50 hours or so. I'm pretty close to the end. I don't know that I'm ever really going to get back to it, to be perfectly honest with you, but I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really, really great. Towards the late summer, it's like all I was thinking about, and I was obsessed with it. So want to give a shout out to all of those experiences. But now, let's get to the 2017 games. Again, 13 games in 3 categories without further ado. Let's start with my 5 favorite games of the year, games I played through and absolutely adored. These are presented in alphabetical order, by the way. But I'm going to start with what was, hands down, my favorite game of 2017, Horizon Zero Dawn. What Sony-owned Guerrilla Games managed to accomplish with Horizon is nothing short of remarkable. That a studio once known exclusively for its first-person shooter series Killzone could pivot into something like this shows just what great minds work there, and how such a pivot will certainly benefit the studio and players alike moving forward. The term robot dinosaurs is often thrown around with Horizon, and it sounds so stupid at first blush. But Horizon makes it all work, and makes such an unusual premise believable, thanks to great writing, interesting characters, a gigantic world worth exploring, and ultimately, seemingly a promise for more to come. Everything hinges on rewarding gameplay that makes Horizon not only beautiful to look at and deeply immersive, it's a blast to play. If you haven't played Horizon yet, you absolutely should. Horizon's story and lush open world beautifully fuse together the past and the future in brilliant ways. And with side quests galore, a crafting system, and more, it simply ticks all the boxes. I struggled with whether to include Mega Man Legacy Collection 2 on my list or not, and decided to ultimately give it what I feel is a much-deserved nod. As I'm sure most of you know, the so-called classic Mega Man franchise is my favorite gaming property of all time, hands down, and so I perhaps come in with a little bias. But you also probably know that I often say that Mega Man 7 and Mega Man 8 are massive steps backward, and that neither are very good games at all. And after playing the collection, I stand by that, especially since they are half the collection. The reasons I want to give Legacy Collection 2 accolades are twofold, however. Mega Man 9 and 10 are absolutely fantastic throwbacks, virtually indistinguishable from Mega Man's 2 through 6, which is about as high a compliment as I can throw at any game. And the trappings of the collection are thorough, and aimed directly at people like me, the most hardcore fans of the Blue Bomber. The extra challenge modes attached to each of the 4 games up the ante and give the collection lots of stickiness, while the inclusion of art galleries give us tantalizing glimpses into the franchise's development. I wish all of my favorite series, Castlevania, Ninja Gaiden, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and others, could be given the same treatment, even if they, like Mega Man, have their weaker entries. 2 Capcom games are on my list, something virtually unfathomable even 2 years ago. This is a publisher that I really think is starting to turn it around after some pretty dark years in the last decade or so. It's not to say that nothing good has come from within its walls, that's obviously not true, but it is to say that the company began falling from grace, largely because it didn't get what people loved about its games. Resident Evil 7 is for me a reaction to that, a home run that can help Capcom reclaim its survival horror throne. RE7 understands a key rule about what makes Resident Evil great. The setting is the most important character of all. The setting is what makes the horror work. And Resident Evil 7 nailed its setting, which in turn allowed it to nail all the other necessities of great survival horror. Fewer enemies, scarcer supplies, and a nagging feeling of dread. Some say RE7 is best played in VR, but I experienced it the old-fashioned way, and I loved it. If this is a sign of what Capcom can do with Resident Evil, particularly with some pretty staunch competition out there from the likes of Bethesda and others, the franchise should continue its much-needed upward trajectory. I'm a huge Shovel Knight fanboy, and I loved the full-length DLC that was delivered to Shovel Knight fans this year in the form of Specter of Torment. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed Specter of Torment, considering how much I actually disliked the first DLC salvo, Plague of Shadows, which put players in control of Plague Knight, who was difficult to control and frustrating to play as. Specter of Torment, as its title suggests, gives us control over Specter Knight, and Specter Knight, unlike Plague Knight, is a pleasure to play as. Specter Knight's feel, his dashy speed, and his ability to traverse huge distances with unique jumps is just the beginning of an all-new experience, with a new story, a reworked world and structure, and an awesome bump in difficulty. While I'm desperate for Yacht Club Games to get on to the inevitable sequel, Specter of Torment made me excited that one more DLC pack, King Knight's King of Cards, is still in the pipeline. It's amazing how much can be extracted out of a 2D side-scroller just through the act of reworking and retooling, and how so much depth, replayability, and enjoyment can be manufactured without blowing everything up and starting again. I'm surprised that more people aren't talking about South Park: The Fractured But Whole, but I loved it. It's one of the 2 games on this list I platinumed, Horizon is the other, and even during that grind, I enjoyed myself immensely. I frankly don't understand some of the complaints leveled at this game, if I'm being honest. The criticism sounds something like this. It looks, sounds, and feels the same as South Park: The Stick of Truth. Its map is identical, the characters are pretty much identical, and on and on. Well, that's part of what I loved about The Fractured But Whole. I loved the familiarity. I loved that it felt the same in some ways. I loved that its story connected to the previous Obsidian-developed game. And I thought it was obvious that the setting, characters, and more would be the same. This is South Park, not the Elder Scrolls. But with all of that said, I felt like Ubisoft nailed the changes too. The writing is solid, the voice acting is great, and the game is incredibly funny. Think about it, how often do you laugh aloud when you play a game? It's a different sensation for our medium, one not often replicated. All of this combined to make The Fractured But Whole a pleasure to play. Now I want to hurl some praise at 3 games that I played somewhat extensively but didn't have as much time with as I would have liked, and would love to get back to because I thoroughly enjoyed what I played so far. As I mentioned in the intro, I really got into Blood-Borne this year, and I think Neo is what ultimately had me give Blood-Borne a second look. For maybe 7 or 8 hours, I lurked around Neo's opening area, upgrading, experimenting, exploring, and lurking about, doing my best to ready myself for a boss in a small ship who I couldn't beat after several tries. Then, as often happens, I got distracted by other things and never went back. But I will. I absolutely will. Because I really loved what Neo was doing. I loved its speed, its difficulty, its story and setting, and its upgrade system. From Software may be the kings of this type of game, but I think Team Ninja deserves some accolades too, because there is room for growth in the so-called Souls genre, and there's room for other perspectives and takes. I look forward to seeing more of what Neo has to offer in 2018. I, like many gamers, am a sucker for Mario, and although I could resist the clarion call of Zelda for a while, I couldn't resist Mario. I lent my Switch to a close friend when I moved to LA, because I just didn't have the time to play it, and it was just sitting there going unused. But once I heard about how good Super Mario Odyssey was, I asked for the Switch back, jumped on in, and loved what I got to play before being distracted by work and travel. I think I'm somewhere between 100 and 150 moons in, so I still have much to do, but I really love what I've played. The hat mechanic is really cool, and although I don't think Odyssey is as good as Galaxy, or dare I say even Sunshine in my eyes, and while its 97 Metacritic score is insane from my perspective, it's a beautifully made game that's fun, and sometimes that's all you need. I'm a bit confounded by some design decisions, and I never needed to see a real human in a Mario game, ever. But let's just say I'll be back, because Odyssey remains on the brain. There's something about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I've been having a hard time putting my finger on it. And what's stranger yet is that I think the game has some serious deep flaws that sit aside all that it does right. After 15 or 20 hours with the game, I think I've seen enough of it to judge the fundamentals. And what I love most about it, I think, is how it lets me do what I think I can do, which pretty much every other game fails at. It's immensely clever and immensely thoughtful, and that goes a long way with me. Is the open world empty and a bit hollow? Yes. Is there a story? Nothing meaningful. Is it vague? Absolutely. Is dealing with breaking gear fun? No, not in the slightest. But I keep coming back because I want to see more. I want to do more. I want to play it through to completion. The only thing I come back to that's perhaps negative is all of this what I'm looking for in a Zelda game? I don't know the answer to that yet, but I suspect I will before long. Finally, I want to give a nod to 5 games that look awesome, but that I didn't get a chance to play in 2017, and that are on my list, which I will indeed be checking twice. Let's start with Call of Duty World War II, which I received before it even came out, but barely got a chance to touch before work and life intervened in classic fashion. I'm a big Call of Duty fan, and play the campaign pretty much every year. This year will be no different. This game looks absolutely fantastic, and as far as shooters go, I don't think any franchise feels better to play. I'm not sure that Cuphead could be any more up my alley, and I think I just need to bite the bullet and download it on Steam. Yes, I will play a game on PC. But what can be said about Cuphead that hasn't already been said? Its visuals are stunning, its gameplay looks crisp and appropriately difficult, and who can resist those cute characters? My suspicion is that I'm gonna fall in love with this one. Many people know me as one of the gaming industry's most outspoken Danganronpa advocates, which makes me not having played Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony yet a little bit strange, but it's high atop the list of games to get to. I don't know whether I'll play it on PS4 or Vita, but I do know that people are really digging it, and that I feel a bit ashamed of myself for not having gotten to Monokuma's newest story yet. People keep saying the new Prey is like BioShock, and obviously that intrigues me a great deal because I absolutely adore the original BioShock. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Interestingly, I bought and downloaded Prey the week it came out, but man oh man was I busy earlier this year. I just couldn't find the time or energy. Writing this and saying this makes me want to play it though. Maybe I'll bump it to the top of my list. The buzz surrounding The Evil Within 2 is very, very good, which makes me very, very happy. I think the reason I haven't jumped in yet, however, is that I never saw the original Evil Within through, and I think I'd like to do that before playing its sequel. Still, I'm an absolute glutton for solid survival horror, so I suspect The Evil Within 2 will resonate with me. I just need to get through number 1 first. Alright, that's it for my list. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the unorthodox nature of it, the 3 categories, including games that I didn't beat, games that I wish I had gotten to. I think it's an interesting and different way to do it, and I hope that it resonated with you. Leave comments below if you have anything to say. I'll be reading them. Thumb up the video if you like it. Thumb it down if you don't. Please share it with friends and family. Let them know about Colin's Last Stand, side quests, fireside chats, and all of that. And please consider supporting the show on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. I will waste no more of your time. I want to wish you and yours a happy new year, a happy 2018 one more time. I hope it treats you very, very well. Thank you again for your love, your support, your kindness, your generosity, and all of the rest. It certainly doesn't go unnoticed. CLS wouldn't exist without all of you. I will see you next time for more SideQuest. Keep on gaming.